Now when we have our lab up and running, let's check some of the admin interfaces that we have. So first of all, we have the Gaia portal. So the Gaia portal, you come to if you go for HTTPS and then the IP address of the gateway or the management station. So this will be a management station. And gateway and management stations will look the same in the Gaia portal, with one exception, and that is if you're running VSX. So VSX will have a lot less information, but it's not covered within the CCSA. So within the Gaia portal, you have the possibility to do changes of your interfaces, DNS, NTP. You can enable SNMP. Here's also where you enable LLDP. You can do some dynamic routing, for example, BGP, OSPF. You can check your licenses. You can do backups, and you can also do software upgrades. So this is CPUs, and CPUs has two interfaces or two GUIs, one old one and one newer one. So this is the latest CPU GUI, how it looks in December 2023. You can still use the legacy layout if you feel more confident there, but this is something that you should click around in. So when it comes to CCSA in general, it's a lot of, you should be aware of what GUIs there are and what you're able to do within this GUI, because it's an admin certificate. So the next one that we will check on is the Smart Console. When it comes to Smart Console, you see here that I have multiple versions installed. Sadly, Smart Console is not backwards capable. So if you're running a management station running R81.20, you need to have the R81.20 Smart Console. The management station itself can still manage gateways with lower version than the management is. If you only have one management station, there is only need for you to have one Smart Console. However, if you work as a consultant or if you have a larger environment with multiple management stations, you will end up like this to have multiple Smart Consoles on your machine. You also see that it's a different one for the endpoints and for, well, the normal one, the regular one. Previously, if we go back 5 or 10 years, there were a bunch more of this. There were more or less 10. But the Smart Console is the main now. So if we log in with the Smart Console, we log in with the username, password to the IP address itself. This will have the possibility to run in demo mode if you just want to try to, well, create a rule base for fun. But let's log in. The Smart Console itself, you're able to connect to like radios or TACACs or even some SAML services. So you don't need to have like username and password that is created within the checkpoint. You can use an identity source to be able to log into this. If you want to check what's latest and newest within each version, you can click here what is new, and here you see the release notes and some new features that these versions have. But Smart Console is the day-to-day operation for the checkpoint environment. This you will be using all the time. So here you have some status of the management station and the clusters that you have or the gateways that you have. Then you also have the rule base itself. You can of course have multiple different rule base. So you can have one rule base per gateway if you want. So if this environment would have multiple gateways, we can create additional policies for specific gateways. Or all the gateways can use the same policy if you feel like that. So it's up to you how you want to handle these policies. It's same here with logs. So the logs that you have that are visible within the Smart Console is for all the gateways and servers, or all the gateways and management servers within this platform. So if you have multiple gateways, these will also show up within the same log. Then you have the possibility to connect to cloud services. We will talk more about that in a different video, but it's more or less for SD-WAN or XDR. and also if you want to connect to different identity providers. But as I said, the smart console is like the main interface of Checkpoint. Yes, there are like within the smart console itself, you can still open up a few of the older smart consoles, so to say. So one example of this is that you can open up manage license and packages. So you will get a different GUI. So this is smart update. So before we did have smart view tracker, smart view updates, etc., etc., a bunch of things. Licenses can still or is still managed within this smart update. So if you want to add or remove licenses, you do it here. But in later releases, and we're talking from like R81.10, you can manage licenses from the smart console if you're not running older licenses versions. So you actually have a tab here for licenses, and we will do a complete dedicated video regarding licenses because, well, it can be a lot. But more or less, you can have licenses either here. So if we select one gateway here, we see that we can add a license file or a license string, or we can do it within this GUI. But that's different video, separate video. So if we go into the CLI instead, so we go to the CP management, the first one that we log into here is the Gaia Clish. Within Gaia Clish, we can do show commands. So here we can do show configuration, we can do show interfaces, Ethernet 0, show interface Ethernet 0. So we have a possibility to do a lot of show commands here. If you want to like back up the configuration from a gateway, yes, if we log into gateway here, we can do show configuration. This includes like all the interfaces and so on, but it doesn't include any rules. The management station show configuration doesn't include any rules either. So you're not able to see the rule base within CLI. So the rule base is visible within the smart console. So this is the rule base. This can be exported with the help of an exporter tool, but it's still not the copy-paste rule base, so to say. So the closest that you can get to copy-paste rule base is to use the API. So the first one that you log into within with CLI is the Clish, where you can do show commands. Then you're able to log into something called expert mode. And within expert mode, it's more or less a Linux. Here you can do top to see like CPU. You can do df-8 to see like disk space. You can do ifconfig, netstat -rn to see routing table. So it's really like a Linux machine. So you can do most Linux commands. There are checkpoint specific commands. So if we go into the expert mode of the cluster itself, so a checkpoint specific command would be like cph probe stat to see the cluster if it's up and running. It can also be like fwstat to see which policy when it was installed, or fttl con tab to see like specific connections and so on. So there are a bunch of checkpoint specific commands that you can run on these boxes, but it's important to know that you have the Clish where you can run show commands. You can also set commands within here. So if we do show configuration within the cliché. So if I want to set a different DNS here, for example, I can use a set command to change the DNS. And I can do a set command to set IP addresses of an interface. So it's not only show, but you can also do set commands. So for example, if this box breaks and I need to replace it, I want to have this show configuration, so I can just copy paste it into the different box. And when I have synced it over to the management station, I can push the policy to it. You still want to save the show configuration as a backup, but it's not a backup of the rule base because the rule base are within the management station. There is an API, and it's a different API reference depending on what version are you running. So if I take up the management API reference, I need to check the API version here. So if I have a management station running R81.20, I should use the management API version 1.9. And then I can check all the different API strings for me to use the API. And this can either be management CLI, or it can be like post request on HTTPS. So one thing that Checkpoint added after a while is because not everyone are running Windows. And the Smart Console is a Windows application. So they wanted to give the possibility for you to more or less view the logs. There is something called Smart View. So if we go to the IP address and then just add Smart View after, then we come to an interface that allows us to check the logs. And only the logs. It can only check the logs or audit logs. You can also see stuff from smart events. You can do like reporting and so on. And this tool is actually something that you need to use from time to time. So within here, you're able to do export to CSV. So you can take up 1 million log lines from this tool. Because if you just do this within the Smart Console, if you try to export here, file, export to CSV, you will get the reference. Please use the Smart View web application. So it's not possible from the Smart Console. Here you're able to export. You can still use all the filters as normal. So if you just want to see like port 53, that is DNS traffic, you can still do all the filters here. So it's the same way. As I said, not everyone is using Windows, so Checkpoint got a lot of, let's say, feedback that people wanted a different way to manage all their Checkpoint environment. So they added something called Smart Console or Web Smart Console. So if you take the IP address and do /Smart Console, you will get into the web interface of Smart Console. It doesn't have all the same features. And you see, I will kick out myself now. So if I proceed here, I will be kicked out from here. The control has been taken over. It looks about the same, but it doesn't have all features. You can still do things with like a drag and drop, and you can push the policy, you can see the logs for the specific rule here. Of course, you can check the logs here. So it's quite similar. You can actually do the export from here. So if you want to have 1 million logs, log lines from here, it's possible. So the reason for Smart View, I don't know if that exists anymore. I think it's better to use the Web Smart Console for those cases. But I think that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.